What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another NFL Deep Dive where we are revealing my NFL power rankings, doing some Vegas over-unders for the 2017 season, and then diving into the depth charts for each NFL team. And at number 2, we've got the Green Bay Packers. And doesn't it seem like every offseason now we are asking if Ted Thompson and the Packers are wasting Aaron Rodgers' prime? Is this the season we don't have to ask that in the offseason? Is this the end of Aaron Rodgers' prime? I don't think so, but as to that, I will say that, yeah, not signing a guy like Casey Hayward was a dumb move, but when you have your 3 starting corners go down for the course of the season, or at least playing hurt, that's going to seem like a much bigger mistake than it actually was. I think injuries have played a huge factor in Aaron Rodgers not getting another ring here. You know, most of us will remember that Cardinals game 2 years ago where his top targets in a road playoff game as a 7-point underdog, his top targets were Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis. Last season, this defense was ravaged by injuries. Both the pass rushers and the secondary were either out or playing hurt for the majority of the season. So as far as next season is concerned, this offense is going to be great. I don't think anybody questions that. They were already awesome last year, but then you add Martellus Bennett, you get Ty Montgomery actually with an offseason of practice at running back. This is probably going to be the best offense in football. I think the Steelers can challenge them for that as long as they can keep all those pieces together. But like I said in my Steelers deep dive, we haven't seen those guys play together too much. The question is the defense, obviously, and it was well documented how bad this defense was last year, but I always talk about injuries and regressing to the mean. This was the most injured playoff team in the NFL last year outside of Houston, if you count a 9-win team as a playoff team. And if you remember, in 2014, this was actually a defensive-heavy team with all those injuries to the receivers. This offense had its struggles, and they won a lot of games based on the defense. And then going back 2 years ago, they had a very solid defense. It wasn't by no means elite, but it was definitely a good enough defense. If they can return to that, or at least close to that, and obviously at number 2 here in my power rankings, I think it is very reasonable to expect a Super Bowl out of this Packers team. As far as Vegas is concerned, the over-under is just 10, which is pretty low actually. I think that's pretty safe. I think this division is pretty weak. It is well documented how low I am on the Detroit Lions this year. I think the Bears could be better than people think, but I like the Vikings as well a little bit, but they should be able to get to 11, 12 wins, I think. The only problem is that barely pays anything. It's like minus 160 right now. To win this division, they are the favorites. I think that's rightfully so. And then the Super Bowl at 8-1, they are tied for second in terms of payout for the Super Bowl. So Vegas thinks this team has a decent shot. I think that's about right at 8-1. I do think the Patriots might be a touch high, all the way up at like under 4-1. But I digress. I like the Packers this year. If they can stay healthy, if this defense can stay healthy, it's going to be a team to be reckoned with this year. So let's run through the depth chart now, starting on offense with the quarterback. It is well documented that I think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football. Go ahead and watch my Rodgers versus Brady comparison video if you want more talk on Aaron Rodgers. And then Brett Hundley, the backup here, finally getting some reps in the preseason. He was hurt last year. Is he a guy that could be shopped? How often do we see your Kevin Cobbs, or even here in Green Bay, we saw Matt Flynn, Matt Hasselbeck, the backup quarterbacks, getting traded to a team in a starting opportunity? Could that be Brett Hundley this year? Could the Jaguars come calling Ted Thompson looking for a quarterback with Blake Bortles' struggles? Definitely something to keep an eye on there. At running back, I'm really optimistic about Ty Montgomery. He really showed flashes last year. Not the best start to the preseason, though, I will say, at his first training camp as a running back. Already a little banged up. That's definitely the question mark, is can he handle the workload? But I really think he honestly has shown those Le'Veon Bell flashes that I've called from certain players. Joe Mixon, I think, has it. Just the patience, speed to power combination. It's very rare in a running back, and I actually saw some of that in Ty Montgomery, especially if you go back and watch that Bears game. And then Jamal Williams drafted in the 4th round, Aaron Jones in the 5th, Devontae Mays in the 7th. These guys are all competing right now. It seems Jamal Williams has a good handle on that backup role. These guys are all more talented running backs than anything they had last year at the position. They're trying out Don Jones. They brought in Christine Michael. So the running game should be improved slightly just because they have running backs now. And then the receivers, Aaron Rodgers makes these guys for the most part. Jordy Nelson continues to prove people wrong though, but 32 years old, coming off the ACL injury. Definitely did not seem to have all of that speed that he once had. He seems to be more of a possession receiver at this point in his career, but a very good possession receiver nonetheless. Could do a lot worse than Jordy Nelson. Randall Cobb in the slot, and Devontae Adams, a player that I think has some major breakout potential this year, contract year. Watch his feet, guys. He has some of the quickest feet, one of the quickest, best releases at the line of scrimmage you're going to find. He needs to get more consistent with his hands, though. Has a ton of dumb drops. I think as a player, he could absolutely grow to be everything that Allen Robinson is. They are very similar athletes, and he gets the benefit of Aaron Rodgers, obviously. Then you got Geronimo Allison, Trevor Davis, Jeff Janis. They draft D'Angelo Yancey, Malachi Dupree. So they got some guys here. It does drop off quite a bit, I would say, after Adams. But Geronimo Allison made some big catches this year. I will say he's like a 62 in Madden 18. He's at least a 70. He had some very big plays, especially in that Cowboys playoff game. So a lot of guys learning the position behind Adams. But those top 3 guys are going to have to stay healthy if this offense is going to be elite. And then Martellus Bennett comes in at tight end. I think that's a huge addition. I love Martellus Bennett in fantasy this year. I've been listening to a ton of podcasts, and he kind of gets thrown under the rug. But I'm going to be honest, Aaron Rodgers has never had a tight end as good as Martellus Bennett. He had Jermichael Finley, could never stay healthy, but Finley had some big seasons here in Green Bay before that career-ending neck injury. Martellus Bennett is going to have a really good season. Lance Kendricks comes over as well. So Richard Rodgers now gets flushed down to the 3rd spot. That is a huge upgrade for this receiving core. Richard Rodgers is fine, but he creates no separation. He is not a great athlete. You bring in 2 guys who are faster, and the run after the catch for Martellus Bennett, I think, is something this offense is really going to enjoy having. And then the offensive line, they do lose TJ Lang. I think that hurts the running game a little bit, but a good signing in Jari Evans just to maintain that elite pass protection that this offensive line has. There are really not any maulers in this group outside of Corey Linsley at center, so he does set the tone, but I think the Packers are an awesome example of what I always say about as long as you have the tackles and they're actual true elite tackles, it really doesn't matter who your guards are. I think the center is important, but David Bakhtiari, Brian Bulaga, right there with the best tackle combo in football. And as far as pass protection is concerned, this is going to be a very good offensive line yet again. Also, it is almost unfair what this team has been able to do developing pretty much anyone at guard. Lane Taylor now is set to make a ton of money whenever his contract is up. We saw this with TJ Lang. We saw this with Josh Sitton, Evan Dietrich Smith, J.C. Treader got a big contract. This team develops interior linemen like nobody in the business, and Lane Taylor is just another example of that. An undrafted free agent in 2013, now set to become one of the highest paid guards in football soon. They do have some good depth as well. I think Jason Spriggs, a 2nd round pick from last year, was a guy that could have gone in the 1st. They took Kyle Murphy from Stanford last year in the 6th. So they have guys that can play. Don Barclay as well has started multiple games before. This offense in general is locked and loaded, ready to roll to be explosive as all hell this year. But now we got to talk about the defense, which definitely has more concerns. I will say this D-line is much better than I think people realize. This defense was really good against the run. We saw in that Cowboys game. The reason they won that game is because they stopped Zeke Elliott for the most part. Mike Daniels really controls the line of scrimmage. He doesn't always get the love he deserves as one of the best enforcers on a defense in the league. And then Kenny Clark, I think, is primed to take another step forward this year. He's only 20 years old, a first-round pick from last year. Dean Lowry is now going to be starting. Just a freak athlete, fourth-round pick out of Northwestern last year. You got Ricky Jean-Francois comes in, and Montravis Adams, a third-round pick this year. Some people had a first-round grade on him. So this D-line is really good. I think this is one of the best D-lines in football. Unfortunately, the linebackers is one of the worst groups in football, especially the inside linebackers. Jake Ryan, Blake Martinez, Joe Thomas. I can't think of a worse starting group of middle linebackers. For some reason, this team continues to ignore that position. And I think when you have a good pass rush and corners, that's fine. But when those guys get hurt, like we saw last year, there's no commander of this defense to at least keep things in front of them. And we really saw that last year. So there's a good chance that comes back to bite this team in the ass yet again. Clay Matthews has really been just battling nagging injuries for the last 2 years, and I'm starting to think that that's just going to be the rest of Clay Matthews' career. He has that aggressive play style where he's taking hits in every direction, but when he's healthy, he is a very diverse linebacker. He'll move inside and be one of the best inside linebackers in football. He can still get after the quarterback. He's a guy that definitely comes up in my Madden rating just because when he is healthy, he is incredible. And then Nick Perry, I want to talk about Nick Perry because he gets that huge contract. And I've never really been impressed with Nick Perry, but it all starts with the fact that he had 11 sacks with that club on his hand last year. He got the contract and I was pretty surprised by it. I have really been paying attention to him more and more now. Am I going to go as far as saying that he is worth that huge contract? I think this year is going to be a big teller of that, I will say. Saw a highlight of him, almost Brandon Graham-esque, really pile-driving Trent Williams back into the pocket. That's that strength that is really intriguing from Nick Perry. So it's going to be a wait-and-see season for me with Nick Perry, but could be a huge pivot point for this defense if he can emerge as an elite pass rusher like he is now being paid to do. And this team is not one to pay players that they don't believe can be worth it. So you definitely give this front office the benefit of the doubt as far as re-signing players that they know can play at a super high level. So that's at least pointing towards Nick Perry having a really solid season. Again, he played most of last season with a club on his hand, still had 11 sacks. And then I like the depth here as far as the development guys go. Kyler Fackrell was a pass rusher out of BYU that I liked coming out of the draft. Jaron Elliott seems to make plays when this team needs him as a rotational pass rusher. And then they take Vince Beagle in the 4th round. I didn't like that pick. Carl Lawson was available, a player I really liked. If this team added Carl Lawson, I would have an even more optimistic approach to this defense. But this zone blitz scheme definitely makes its butter off of that pass rush. We saw the secondary, which we'll talk about in a second here, really struggle because the pass rush wasn't working last year. Clay Matthews and Nick Perry were playing hurt, and everyone in the secondary were pretty much undrafted rookies. So that's really where this defense suffered last year, was that pass defense. So I think that's going to be improved this year. Let's talk about the corners. They signed Devon House, who didn't play much in Jacksonville last year. That was a decent group of corners last year. He's at least a guy who isn't an inexperienced guy playing on his rookie contract. He'll at least be able to keep things in front of him. He played pretty well for this Green Bay team a few years ago. Not really a playmaker, but a guy that can keep the defense in front of him, which is really all this team desperately needs. Then you got Quentin Rollins and Demarius Randall. Really had good rookie years, but took a huge step back last year. I think Demarius Randall, moving into the nickel now, is going to take a third-year step forward. I just think he's such a playmaker and a ball hawk that he's going to make some big plays. Might never be a shutdown corner, but a guy that in this aggressive scheme could really return to a high level of play. And then that second corner is going to be a huge question and a pivot point for this defense, right? It's going to be either Quentin Rollins, Ladarius Gunter, or second-round pick Kevin King. Packers fans are hoping it's Kevin King. Is he ready? He was kind of raw coming out. We'll see. He might need a redshirt year to get adjusted to the NFL. So can Quentin Rollins really take a step forward? He was a basketball player for most of his college career. Now in his third NFL season, can he get things in front of him and become a starting caliber corner? And then you got Demetrius Goodson and Josh Hawkins here as well. So really a young group of corners. an inexperienced group of corners outside of Devon House. And then at the safety position, this is one of the better duos of safeties in the NFL. Clinton Dix, really good in coverage, starting to be even better in the run defense. And Morgan Burnett, your traditional strong safety. They move him up in the box a ton. Very sure tackler, just a very super solid safety. And then they take Josh Jones in the second round here. Definitely an intriguing guy, one of those top 1% type of athletes. Just look at his NFL combine grades. It's pretty incredible. Does that translate to play on the field? Where does he play in this scheme? Do they play him back as a deep safety and move Burnett in the box, or do they use that size and speed more in the box? Either way, I think Morgan Burnett or Josh Jones are essentially going to be a linebacker in a lot of formations because these inside linebackers are terrible. So that's going to wrap up my review of the Packers depth chart. Packers fans, let me know if there's anyone you think I need to talk about here that I didn't. NFL fans, I know the Packers are very much a team that people are either high or low on. So where do you stand on the Packers? How do you think they fare this year against a very deep NFC? That's all I got. Cheers, everyone. Good day. We'll see you for the next one.